Welcome, everyone, to Galactic Ambition, a Star Wars Unlimited podcast, part of the Maindeck podcast family. I'm Dan.
And I'm Jason, and I did not get the memo we were wearing solid colors today.
Sorry, I should have probably said that to
I
you,
thought
but
we
yeah.
would color coordinate for our very first episode, but I guess, maybe next time, maybe we can figure that out as we go.
Well, maybe we're like, you've got a blue shirt, some kind for like a blue lightsaber. So like Rey had a blue lightsaber, but now at the end she has a yellow lightsaber, right? Which is like, and I've got a yellow on. So, maybe we're just kind of like we're doing like a Rey thing.
Okay, I think I could get behind that. I mean, this comes off as blue, huh? It's black. Maybe it's like that whole dress. Remember that dress thing? Is it yellow or is it gold or whatever? I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's something like that. But yeah, this is going to be really exciting. I'm glad to kind of talk about this exciting game and just kind of talk with a very good friend of mine about something we're both very passionate about.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And in particular, we actually debated for a little bit about like what to cover in our first episode, because this is kind of like, Jason, you've been part of the Maindeck podcast before for some previous episodes. The big one I remember is coming on to cover our Pokemon end of year podcast episode last year, which is a lot of fun. Last December, I was putting out a million podcast episodes. And then at the end of the December, and where we just covered like every TCG. So you joined for that one. You were very helpful on that one. And then I remember saying at the end, I was like, oh man, I do not want to put out like 7 podcasts a month again. And now this December, guess what? I'm putting out like 7 podcasts or more.
Yeah.
So
time is a flat circle. So, I mean,
yeah. So that's really fun. It's fun to have you back in for something here. But yeah, so for the people who are just joining us for the first time. So we have, we've in Maindeck, we've covered TCGs in various ways, including podcasts for years now. But we just separated the Maindeck podcast into the Maindeck podcast family. So we're now covering very specific TCGs. And this, of course, so you've clicked on because this is the Star Wars Unlimited one. And presumably you're someone who's interested in Star Wars Unlimited. So like I was saying, we went back and forth talking about like, okay, well, on the first episode of the Star Wars Unlimited one, what exactly do we even talk about on this one? Like, how do you just jump in? Like, Jason, you and I have been we've been like watching Star Wars Unlimited. I've been producing some content, not super regularly, but some pretty decent ones, like the big Ultimate How to Play and everything. And you were at Gen Con with me. And how many times did you demo Star Wars Unlimited while you were there?
I played it 9 times. Okay. And I made it a point to get back in line and play again multiple times, to the point where everybody was like, you could do something else. And I'm like, I could, or I could just do this again. And it was a ton of fun. And if I could have done it 9 more times without, being there the whole time, I definitely would have played some more for sure. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was definitely like one of the highlights of Gen Con for us, was getting to just finally play the game after, poring over everything that had been released for the previous weeks, like kind of building up to it. So for this first episode, just as people who like are very familiar with the game, have done some coverage, but are not like one of the, the regular podcasts who are they're on episode like 52 already, like putting out podcasts every other day or something. Feel like a lot of stuff had been like a lot of stuff been talked about so far. So why don't you tell our audience what we kind of settled on to talk about when we get to our sort of main topic today?
So today, I think we decided to focus on the marketing aspect of the game. I think it's something that I really haven't seen a bunch of people talk about, and something that's going to be really important, I think, for the longevity of the game, and I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Marketing it's one of those things where the weird thing about marketing in TCGs is that I think a lot of people have a lot of very strong opinions about exactly what should be done. And the interesting truth about TCG marketing is that the most powerful marketing tool, in my understanding, experience, etc., is word of mouth. So that's not to say that there's nothing that should be done, because you have to get those words into someone's mouth in the first place, right? But then it's up to them to kind of get their friends into the game and everything. So I think it'll be an interesting conversation about like what what Fantasy Flight Games has done so far, what's worked, maybe what hasn't. I'm not sure what, which is kind of like that kind of stuff of that. And then kind of what do we think needs to be happening in the future to really, because like we're talking Star Wars Unlimited. We're talking one of the most powerful IP fandoms on the planet. Like you just like Star Wars it's to the point where it's a fandom or an IP that other IPs get compared to. It's like, well, that's popular, but it's not like it's Star Wars or anything. Like literally something that people just say, right? And at the point when your game is literally like effectively the textbook definition of a popular IP, you have to think there's a lot of potential there. So it'll be interesting to talk about, I think, how FFG is going to maybe best fulfill that potential that's out there for a card game that, as we said, we've really, really enjoyed so far.
Yeah.
Before we get there, let's talk a little bit. Let's just chat a little bit again, because we have, I think, a fairly new audience. So, Jason, do you want to tell everyone who the heck is Jason Toro? What are you doing here? Why are you here?
Because we talked about this. You asked me to do this with you.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, so getting that out of the way, I'm just a guy that plays a lot of card games all the time. My background in trading card games is, let's see, I'm almost at, like, oh my gosh, thinking about that hurts. Well, I've been playing trading card games for almost 25 years now.
Yeah, when I do that too, I'm like, oh my god,
it's like, what am I doing? And it's like, with the lighting, like, a lot of my gray doesn't show, but I really have a ton now. Like, you'll be surprised by the time you see me at Gen Con this year. You're gonna be like, wow, you were just rotting. You're rotting in front of me. It's kind of insane. But,
it's gonna be like when Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith got hit back with his lightning. It's gonna
absolutely.
be yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But no, my trading card game background's for about 25 years now. Mostly like everybody and their mother started with Magic at the Gathering and then came through from a whole bunch of other different games. And now winding up here, and then how I've come across and joined Maindeck and Dan is through our time with another card game many moons ago, when we judged Dragon Ball Z about 135 years ago, it feels like now. And I was just some random guy in Florida that flew up to North Dakota to help out at one of the regional events there. And I was like, where is this even on a map? It's the first time I think I saw a horse in real life. Like no lie. I'm dead serious. Like you laugh, but I'm completely serious. Down in Florida, we have horses. They're just not where I live. I'm on the west coast of Florida where like it's just old people just everywhere. It's just wall-to-wall old people in retirement homes and beaches. It's great. You don't get to see much wildlife outside of gators, So yeah, met what, that was 2016 probably.
Yep. Right around there. Yep.
And yeah, and from there, Dan and I became really good friends. I'd like to think, I guess. And
yes,
yeah,
we're good friends.
Oh, good. So now, okay, good, we are. And yeah, so I hope to bring in these conversations that we'll have every few weeks a unique perspective of somebody who lives in the lawless land of Florida. Things are a lot different down here. If you're from Florida and you're listening to us or watching us today, I'm sorry, but thank you for watching us. But yeah, I'm really excited to bring a kind of fun perspective. And most importantly, I think I'm really excited to talk about something that's a ton of fun, that's super exciting for the fandom around it to rally around, and really just to converse with somebody who I really trust and appreciate to have these conversations with. And I think we're just going to have a lot of fun if I'm allowed.
If you're allowed to think that, or if you're allowed to have fun, because those are two different answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Both.
Perfect.
So tell everybody about Dan Green. Who is Dan Green? What is Dan Green?
Well, yeah. Obviously, a lot of people out there will already know that I'm the face and the creator of Maindeck and everything that we're building here. We're a community built around a love of TCGs, a passion around the community and the games themselves that TCGs create. And in particular, what we focus on in Maindeck are we tend to focus on, like, it's not that we haven't covered other like the bigger games. We tend to focus on the games that are not Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. We tend to skip those to some degree. I mean, they're part of the fabric of the TCG world. It's like you can't not talk about them sometimes. And I have played all three of them at multiple times at different points in my life. But what I've found through all of my experience, again, like you, I have a good over 25 years of experience playing TCGs at this point. Or actually, we're just hitting 25 now. I think we're just about the same. My very first TCG I played was instead of a TCG, it was a CCG. It was a customizable card game that many, I hope, of our audience will know, the Star Wars customizable card game by Decipher. And just by knowing that about me, I'm sure it's quite easy to understand why I'm here, because I have been waiting for the return of a true Star Wars CCG for, decades, I guess, like, or a decade, at least a decade. Having played the Wizard CCG, Young Jedi, classic, good old Young Jedi. I did not play Jedi Knights. That looked weird. The CGI was very bad in that game. I don't know if you remember that one, but it's the one where they were really trying hard. It was the CCG where the art was all like the art that you show your mom when you're 4 and she's like, "Oh honey, that's so good. We're going to put it on the fridge." It was like all the art, it was like CGI version of that.
Art. Yeah. You did great. And then the dog ate it and they're just like, "Oh, well, that's a good try, honey."
Oh, the dog ate it, meaning that they got tired of looking at it and threw it in the trash can.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was the CGI version of that. I mean, like, honestly, like at the time it was cutting edge, but man, it's not good. Anyway, I played the Wizards of the Coast TCG, not a huge amount, but some. I played the Star Wars miniatures game, Wizards of the Coast one also. I did not play the Star Wars, what was it called? The MMO. The MMO had a TCG. Star Wars. I'm totally blanking on its name now.
Man, they really went deep with that. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there was a TCG built specifically for it started with a G or something, not the Old Republic, but the previous one. It was just called Star Wars. It's called Star Wars Galaxies. I'm so stupid. It was just called Star Wars Galaxies. Anyway, that had a TCG. I didn't play that one. But I did play Destiny. I did play the LCG. I've been in the Star Wars game space for forever. And in the past few years, especially as Maindeck was growing, and I'm thinking like, man, I love making content. I love TCGs. I would give anything right now to have them come out with, well, I kept saying like to remake the Star Wars CCG, but honestly, this for subject for another podcast, but I don't even think that's a good idea because of how TCG game design has changed and evolved over the years. But anyway, FFG announced Star Wars Unlimited, and I was like, you got me. Fine, whatever. Like, I don't care what else is happening. I am a Star Wars fan, super fanatic since I was young. I always tell everyone, people are like, you haven't seen Highlander? You haven't seen, I don't know, name any movie from, the past. And I would tell people it's because I spent my entire youth just rewatching the original trilogy. So, very long-winded explanation, but that's who I am. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I'm a massive TCG fan. I love supporting smaller games. And I mean, like, I guess like games that aren't Magic, but I think Star Wars Unlimited has the potential to be in that upper echelon of games, along with some other TCGs right now that are like, I think we're getting the stable of like racehorse TCGs. They're all kind of getting to that starting line. And it's going to be fascinating to see between like Flesh and Blood, One Piece, Star Wars Unlimited, Lorcana, like which TCGs can really like push ahead and kind of join the ranks up there. And
2024 is going to be absolutely insane for that. Honestly, I really am kind of excited for that whole melting pot and see what happens there. Cause there's so many, like you said, there's so many TCGs on the cusp. And then, like you said, Star Wars Unlimited is coming along, and the way it feels like it's going, it can definitely just be right there with them and hopefully blow it out of the water out the gate. And that's what we're hoping we're going for with our marketing talk. I'm hoping that they get that right off the launch pad. They don't stumble at the block. So I'm really excited for all that.
Yes. And I think that's actually a wonderful transition. I think we definitely should get to actually hitting the meat of our conversation there. And I'm sure people will start to really get to know the two of us across all these episodes. So I do hope all you folks listening out there do stick with us and start to kind of become our little podcast friends and leave in the comments, what you think and talk to us. We love chatting about our sub. I mean, if you're doing a podcast, I always say this: if you're doing a podcast, it's because you love talking. So I would
Oh
love to
yeah,
talk to you in the comments too. So go ahead and let us know
I can't shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Me either. Before we jump into that, the thing I do in all of our Main Deck podcast family podcasts, I love to really make that long too. Because we don't have any official like podcast sponsors, I have a little section here where I just like to jump in and remind people how they can support Main Deck if they do feel like they want to support Main Deck. If they're like, I really like listening to that, how can I help these guys know it and how can I help them grow? There are two really great things you can do to help us out if you feel like it. Number one, whether you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes, you can do something to help. If you're on YouTube, feel free to leave a like, comment on the video, what you think about the topic, or what you think about my sweater for the day, or whatever you want to. You can go ahead and drop anything down there. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you do want to catch more Star Wars Unlimited podcasts, Star Wars Unlimited content, and content for other TCGs. And if you're on like iTunes or Spotify, leaving a 5-star rating, that's always a nice way to let us know that you do like what we're doing and help us get discovered. So really appreciate all of that. The other thing you can do to support us actually a little more directly, monetarily, without spending a dime yourself, is we are going to have a TCG Player affiliate link down in either the description or the show notes, wherever you're watching this, where you can click on that link. It'll bring you to TCG Player, but a special hyperspace lane that gets you to TCG Player through our affiliate platform, so that any purchase you make on TCG Player using that link will get a kickback, but you don't have to pay anything extra, which is like the coolest deal in the world, because TCG Player already offers basically the market price. It's the market standard price for everything. So you're already going to get what is effectively the best deal you can get for cards, but then you're also going to support the channel. And obviously Star Wars Unlimited is going to be on TCG Player when it launches. So make sure to check your singles out there. You can also type bit.ly/shop TCGs into your address bar. That's bit.ly/shop TCGs. That works too. So with all that said, that's all. I'm done with my plug. That's all I got. Jason, lead us in. How are we going to approach the topic of marketing in Star Wars Unlimited?
So that's a really good question. And I've been thinking about this all day as we kind of, like in the 23rd hour, kind of figured out what we're going to talk about today. It is the holiday season and it's on the forefront of everybody's mind. You see advertisements and everything everywhere. And I think what I would like to start with the marketing is, what have they done so far to kind of get it out there? We know they've been on a bit of a con circuit. They've been I keep seeing posts about every con on the planet or where they were then. And just, it's been really nice to kind of see that they're immediately hitting the ground running from kind of like Gen Con forward, if I would like to be really honest. And it's just kind of been everywhere, which has been nice to see. I think, and I'll kind of send this to you, but at least for me, that's been a very good start to not just go, okay, let's dump the demo decks on an LGS like I've seen other games do, to really just, okay, let's get out there, even at a rudimentary level. What Gen Con was in August, so we don't even see the game till March. So to even get it out that early into people's hand, I thought that was really good, as to kind of put a really nice, good faith foot forward by Fantasy Flight. And I think that's been a really good start. And I don't know what your thoughts on that, especially with how aggressive they've tackled that con scene, where your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that is the thing that I've been pointing out to everyone about this game. And I think you brought up in particular a really interesting contrast that I would love to talk about, just given our sort of breadth of TCG experience. So like, one thing I'm really used to seeing when a new TCG launches, and the reason I'm used to seeing this is because Bandai does not stop putting out new TCGs. They literally, by the way, right before we started recording this, they announced Union Arena is coming to the West now too. It's like, guys, can you cool it like a little bit?
Really calm down, but they're fine. Yeah. They might finally get my money, but they could really calm down.
So one thing Bandai does is every time they launch a new TCG, they do this thing where it's like, sign up and we'll ship you some demo decks. Okay. Which I always thought was like pretty cool. It's cool of them just to like the expense is like crazy for just like shipping decks. Like as someone who ships a lot of stuff for like our leagues and everything, prizes all the time, like I wouldn't want to do that. but
No, of course.
but I I guess when I think about comparing that route to comparing Fantasy Flight's, like as you said, extremely aggressive con schedule, I have not seen a even like on the outskirts of major con anywhere that hasn't been like, oh, and by the way, Fantasy Flight will be there with Star Wars Unlimited demos. What I really like about Fantasy Flight's approach, in contrast, is that it's making the demo of the game itself the actual event rather than it being a means of getting a product early, right? And with the aggressive approach, it's not unreasonable that a lot of gamers will be able to find one of, like, there's plenty of gamers who just don't have the opportunity, don't have the ability, don't have, for some reason or other they can't get to a con. Um, which is fine. Also, you should try to, if you're able to at all. If you have the ability to get to a major con like Gen Con or something, always recommend. It's like such an experience. Um, but for the people that are able to get to those, which is, I mean, as we know, like a good amount of people, they're able to go to this event and sit down with a knowledgeable staff member who walks them through everything, basically like helps ensure that there's a good experience. My anecdotal evidence, not to go on too long before I pass it back to you, but my anecdotal evidence for this is that when Bandai did Battle Spirits and they shipped out Battle Spirits demo decks, I talked to one of our local players who got the demo decks. I was like, oh yeah, what'd you think of the game? He said, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was very good. And I said, oh, like why? Because I think Battle Spirits is a decent game, but so I was like, well, why did you think it was bad? And he said, well, it didn't feel like you did anything. You just attack with everything and then they die, or they attack you and they die. It's just like, and I was like, oh, you weren't like blocking. You were like, you didn't want to like
Yeah.
not die. And like, just to be fair. So this guy I'm talking to, named Spencer, one of the greatest dudes that are locals. He runs a lot of our local band. He runs Digimon and everything. He's a solid player. He's a great guy. But what happened was he was sent a demo and they just said, figure it out, have fun, figure it out. And he stumbled upon a way to play the game, which is suboptimal, and leads to a very poor experience. And every TCG tends to have some tendency to be able to do that to play the game poorly. Like that's just like part of having skill in the game. Like the necessary part of having a game where there's a range of like good plays to great plays is that there also is necessarily a bunch of plays that are really bad that you can make too.
Yeah, that's all I do for everybody's knowledge. So if you want game like advice or anything, like don't ask me. Don't ask me. I'm the guy who didn't block. I'm 100% the guy who didn't block. I'm like, oh yeah, let's just go this. There we go. No.
Yeah. But like, I love that when you're just kind of saying, well, if you want to try the game, come try it with us. Then you're basically opening it up. You're making it so that you're going to help people have a good experience every time they get there and they try the game. And it's like basically it's an aim for quality over quantity, is like if we're going to really just distill it.
Sure.
And I think that's an approach with a lot of merit. As much as I'd like to be holding a bunch of Star Wars demo decks in my hands right now, as we said right away, it's like word of mouth is such a good thing. And like the Gen Con word of mouth, Jason, you were there. Like the game was, for a lot of people, I think, way under the radar, but it was like electric at Gen Con. Everyone's like, oh, did you try Star Wars Unlimited yet? Did you get to try the demo yet? Did you go over there and play it? Like that was cool.
Yeah. And to that end, and not to digress too much, but I got that same demo deck from Battle Spirits, and it literally was 2 demo decks in a big envelope. And that was it. And I was like, sick. Cool. At least they look cool. I have Mancala beads. You remember that game. But the biggest takeaway from that for me, and while I agree with everything, there was one downside to the whole experience of that, and it was the very demo experience depending on who was teaching you the game. Now, the human element always has to rear its ugly head in everything we do. But since I played it about 635 times, there were a couple times where you went up and the person who was teaching you simply did not know some or even most of the rules, which is okay. For a lot of those people, they probably got there that weekend on probably Wednesday as part of like the staff meetings and learned how to play for some of those people who volunteered and signed up. So there was that. But you're exactly right. When I came back home and I had my promos to bring back to all my friends and talk about it with them, outside of everybody being like, wow, Star Wars is going to be putting out a TCG, I was so excited to talk about it. And while I didn't have the demo decks in hand, because I was able to sit there and do it in an environment where people were so excited to play it versus them coming to my house, which I do think if they were to do demo decks, those should be going to the LGSes within the next month or two, in my opinion. This is now we're in that full court press where now you get it to the LGSes that maybe order the Fantasy Flight products for other games and get it into the stores. So now you start playing. I think that's where a good next step, not to kind of jump ahead, would be. But just playing it myself with people who had just experienced it for the first time in a room of people experiencing it for the very first time, I couldn't describe it. Not to give away the goose, but I'm not nearly as Star Wars versed as Dan or even a lot of other people are. But afterwards, I became so excited and have started to engross myself in it simply because I had so much fun playing a game that appeals to me. Because when I was growing up, we didn't do a bunch of the Star Wars around my house. It was all horror films. It was a broken home kind of thing, but it's okay. But
Oh no,
it's okay. No, it's okay. I'm just partially kidding. But yeah, so kind of like what you said, the aggressive con circuit thing was great. But I think the biggest takeaway was being in a room of hundreds of people, checking it out for the first time, and then bringing it to a place with like-minded individuals in a card space. They didn't just bring it to a place where it was, let's say, just a trading card game event or a Star Wars event. It was people from both sides of the coin, and GenCon's all around, for everything. But it brings all sides of the coin together. And you had people who've never played a trading card game in their life sitting down to check it out. They're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And then on the other side, you have people who've never really kept track of Star Wars in their life playing a really sick game. So I think that's probably something they've knocked out of the park right out the gate for me, was taking it at a level at the cons and stuff like that and just going, okay, this is how we're going to roll it out.
Now, I want to just jump in because you were absolutely right when you mentioned at Gen Con, the staff was uneven. I'd say pretty charitably. They were uneven in their ability to really teach the game, to the point where it was fairly funny when I went up for the demo. I went there and I was the person starts teaching me, and I actually I corrected a couple things, and he was like, "Oh, you know more than me," and I was like, "Yeah, I actually made the how to play video that just came out a couple days ago." So, not trying to be a dick or anything. It was I was letting him do his thing, go ahead and teach and everything. But, I'd also wanted to play it correctly. So I had to answer a couple things. But I think the big thing about a Gen Con, it was that was the very first, my video had just come out 2 days ago. My video launched the day that rules came out. It was right there. Thanks to Fantasy Flight, giving me a little bit of a heads up and helping me out a little bit, which is super incredible of them. Because I think we put out a really wonderful video that I think has helped a lot of people understand the rules of the game better, and get into the game. I get a lot of good comments, people saying, "Oh, this looks really awesome. I want to," and I get a few funny comments they should have kept Destiny. Well, they couldn't, but
yeah, roll the dice on that one.
Yeah. But regardless, I haven't been to any event since then with the Star Wars Limited demos. So I can't say as to whether or not they've improved, but I have to imagine a large chunk of that was literally just the Asmodee North America staff had no time to learn the game before it came out. It just happened. And a week later they were at Gen Con.
And they probably watched your ultimate how to play video to learn it all, because that's what I did.
And they got it wrong.
They got it wrong, and they're just man, we're never gonna get this right. And then they all left nasty comments, and everything was terrible. So
yeah, that's probably exactly right.
That's probably exactly what happened. So I guess we've talked about how Gen Con and how the con circuits worked out. Why don't we talk about how they've tackled social media and Twitter with kind of this semi-spoiler season we're in right now, as cards keep, trickling through and content keeps coming through. How do you feel about how they've approached, like, let's say Twitter, Facebook, social media? How's everything looking on that in your opinion? Because I have some thoughts.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess overall, I've thought things have been done fairly decently. I think I think some social media posts have been more effective than others. Um, I think right away they began with a bunch of art reveals, and like art reveals are cool, but like in every TCG, it's this like art reveals are like fine. Like,
they certainly were
I get.
polarizing. There were there were very interesting opinions about art without really digging into that too much. But yeah, you can go ahead with that. I just really had to interject.
Well, that's a good point, because like the art is a very particular style in Star Wars Unlimited, at least so far on Spark of Rebellion. It's something that can always be like they can, over time, it can be a moving target. They can just kind of like keep adjusting and trying to find exactly what kind of tone and style they want to set. But yeah, one of the biggest things, and again, as someone who's had some videos out for Star Wars Unlimited, like since the day it was announced, effectively, I've had videos out there. So I've seen my fair share of like public opinion, even on direct comments to my videos. And yeah, it's, some people do not like it. Some people don't. And that's totally fine. It's, not everything's going to appeal to everyone. And some art pieces, like one of the big ones, the Han leader is for some people, like I've seen some people saying like, it's the best piece of art. It's got so much character. It's exactly Han. I love it. And I've seen other people saying it looks so unrealistic. It looks like a cartoony, super over the top. Like, I don't like that. So effectively what we have is the Last Jedi of Star Wars Unlimited cards. And you can decide which camp you fall into.
Yeah, that one. And coming from, we'll probably touch on this at a later point because I can't help but talk about it. My main game is Final Fantasy trading card game. I'll play it until it's in the dirt, and I'll continue to play it. We range from beautiful art by Yoshitaka Amano to Final Fantasy 11.jpg. Like,
they're so bad, dude.
They're so bad. So like for me, this is a breath of fresh air. But I had to jump on that point about the art, not to dig too much of a tangent, because to me it cracked me up. I'm like, listen, buddy, we get a set where it goes from one spectrum to the other, and you have to play those really bad looking cards because they're insane. Final Fantasy 11's probably got some of the crazier cards in the trading card game because of course it does. So it's just, I didn't mean to segue from that, but it's so funny when you said it started with the art reveals. I had to mention that it was so polarizing, which is good. It's got people talking about it, which is important.
Yeah, there is an element of no publicity is bad publicity to that, right, too, which is like, it's just anything. That's how social media works these days. Anything that just gets comments, viewers, anything that gets comments tends to get seen more.
Anything you want to talk about and type on the internet,
right down there. Anyway, but so like that's not a bad thing. It's kind of that. So that is kind of good. But just from the perspective of someone who was like trying to, I wanted to start making content. I wanted to start showing things to people. I wanted to start talking to people about the game, and it was really hard to make content. It's getting a lot easier now, but it was really hard to make content for a while when it was like, all right, this week in Star Wars Unlimited, we've confirmed there is a Greedo, and that's literally that's it. That's the content.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night. Tip your bartender
comment
on the way out.
Who your favorite Greedo is. I don't know. It's like that stuff wasn't super exciting, but what they've started to move to and what they've done, some of the things they've done have been really good. I think like really, really good social media posting. The things that stand out to me are for a while they did, actually the live streams. I have to talk about the live streams they do. Yes. Fantasy Flight's live streams have set the bar for what I expect. And I'm someone who follows a lot of TCGs and watches a lot of TCG live streams, and Fantasy Flight has these really good, they've had a couple that were like, actually like that was kind of fast and terse, and they didn't really answer a lot of questions, and they just kind of like zipped through it. Like, but I think they were like in the middle of con season, and they were like, we have like 20 minutes to do this, guys. Like whatever. But like, some of these have been like long answering tons of viewer questions, super, super transparent, just like straight up, like talking about anything they could. They make sure to put spoilers in every single
Mm-hmm.
video, no matter what they're covering. And like, it's really felt like I've, like I actually know who these developers are, and I know what they like. Like, I know who Tyler is. I know who Jeremy is. I know what they like. I know Jeremy's favorite Star Wars movie is Episode 6, right? And I know that Tyler, he gets so excited about streaming that he wears clothes to match whatever aspect they're talking about in every single stream he does.
Oh.
Like, I think that's so cool, and has really sort of engaged me and endeared me to the developers of the game. And that's I think, the best thing they've done.
Yeah, and you nailed it on the head. Engagement. The fact that they're taking the time to talk to people and comment in those streams, and really they could just barrel through it all, go through slide by slide, show that what they're going to talk about, say what they're going to say, have a great night. They're engaging with people, answering all these questions, even questions like somebody like myself is like, what is a Jedi sent? Stuff like that. I know what that is. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But you make a really good point in that the engagement from those streams have been huge. And they've really set a bar, especially from other card games. And you're right, it's a con season, it's holiday season, everything else. But even outside of that, none of these TCGs are really touching it outside of, I would say Magic. Magic has their own thing, and Pokemon, but Pokemon doesn't do anything like that. They usually spoil all their cards during their big events, or just because Japan's got sets ahead, we already know it's coming, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, in addition, as far as engagement's concerned, in addition to those live streams, the other thing that they did, just real quick shout out to the live streams where they were revealing the legendaries that are named after each aspect. They all have 4 abilities, and you choose 2 of them. Those are the most fun ones, because they started a game where they had the community just guess what the abilities are, and as we guessed them, they would reveal them on the card. Like, that kind of stuff was like was yeah, super, super fun. They're all phenomenal cards too, by the way. I love those cards. But in addition to those, they did a series of posts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram that are they would say, okay, this month we're revealing command cards, and everybody just got to vote for, did they want to see a base unit upgrade or event first. And I liked that kind of stuff, because it was like exciting to, we've got 4 new reveals to show you. So you're already like, oh man, I cannot wait to see the base for command. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so cool. I bet. And it is really good too. And you got to go and vote for what you wanted to see. And that got like people engaging, and again, like, just building that sort of, I think a lot of people consider advertising for a TCG to be strictly, they have to push out ads on YouTube, on Facebook, whatever. They have to pay to get ads shown, and that's it. And while that is a component, and that is an important component, that alone is not going to do it. That alone is going to give you Battle Spirit Saga. I had so many Battle Spirits ads last year at this time, like a constant ad. Like, every YouTube video I watched, I got a Battle Spirit Saga ad. And that game has a player base, but it's not a super strong one. And what I didn't see was, like, I mean, okay, look, if we're going to compare Battle Spirit Saga's advertising, like, Battle Spirit Saga had Avril Lavigne. So
yeah, I was going to call, I didn't want to say anything, but I still remember when that dropped. Like, I was like, what kind of world is this? Yes. I was like, is this real? And lo and behold, it was. And I think the lesson to be learned from them, and not to disparage it, because I think the game's great. I actually have a lot of fun playing it. You can't just throw a lot of money as prizes at something and expect people to just come out and do it. You have all that money to give away, but there's nothing behind it. It feels hollow.
Yeah. And not just the prizing. That's the thing. Battle Spirit Saga, they came out, they're like, $1 million circuit. Like, you got to play our game because there's $1 million you can win. Mm-hmm. Which is actually historically has never made a game sustain long term as the like, never. Like, the first time this happened, and I'm going to put on my like real old TCG player hat, but the first time this really happened was Versus System, the original Versus System, which came out and announced, if you want to play a game, if you want to play a serious game, you got to play Versus System. $1 million on the line, which I think at the time, I'm not 100%. I think it beat Magic that year as far as like the amount they were offering. Because I think that was the big thing. Like this is when we got our news through TCG magazines. All the TCG mags were like, you got to check out. I mean, they're paid too, but you got to check out Versus System because $1 million prize pool. And Versus System had a strong start and then failed to maintain anything, and then just fell in the dumpster until it was revived as the expandable card game later on. And we see that happening again and again and again, even recently with Battle Spirit Saga. You know, like I was going to say, it's not just throwing money at OP is not. I think cash and OP is important, but making it your primary advertising is not good. Also, just throwing money at random influence, like not even influence, like random musicians like Avril Lavigne and stuff is like it's fun to meme about, but like the way that you get a lot of engagement today is going to involve some amount of doing things like that, some amount of cash prizes. It's going to have some amount of of influencer deals, like getting people to talk about it, because you want to get people to talk about it. And sometimes you need to broach the market in different ways. Right. But the big thing is you want to have a game that people want to engage with. You want to get people engaging with your game in different ways. And a lot of that is that aspect of just getting on social media and getting people to talk. And that's where Fantasy Flight has focused so far. They've been basically the only thing they do, to the point where people are complaining. I've already seen on like the Facebook community, everything, people complaining that they're not marketing, but they are, all of this is marketing.
Right. And they are, but I do think there's a point too that a lot of those people, like we said, probably haven't been to a con this year. Maybe not are all over different forms of social media. Maybe they don't tune into YouTube or anything like that. And maybe they're missing that part of that, which I think will lead to kind of, I think, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think we've kind of pounded it out. Social media has been engaging and to a fault, been exciting to talk to people about new things. While I think some things were hit and miss, like the art reveals. That wasn't for me. I had a close friend of mine who was really excited for it. He's like, "Oh, do you see this?" I'm like, "Yeah, cool, it's a picture." But to me, I want to know what the card does. That's me. But I think to the next point is I think what they need to go to next, and I think that's where people are kind of complaining, is that there's nothing in the LGSs about it. And to speak anecdotally, my main LGS down here in Florida that I go to every week, I had to tell them when the game was coming out, which is okay. Like, they don't normally carry Fantasy Flight products. They carry, they finally started carrying stuff because we've been playing Marvel Champions. Like, that's been our big thing lately. Like, oh my God, we play once a week and just losing our minds playing that game through Asmodee, all that. Anyway, now they have a pipeline for all that stuff. So we told them about that, and I'm like, okay, so it's December. And I think what I'm trying to say is, when does Fantasy Flight cross the buzz that the game is coming out to solicitations to stores for not even organized play? I think this is, like, at least in my opinion, I'm only one person, this is the part where we would start looking at getting demo decks to store. So start getting solicitation. Even the posters, a little poster here and there, standee here and there, stuff to get it into the stores. Because I do think some of these people posting on Facebook or other social media aren't as wired in, and maybe you're just like, they saw like, oh, I'll keep track of it. My local game store doesn't know anything about it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is where does the gap get bridged from this con blitz to social media to really just kind of getting it from the web to inside the store where people play, and the people who may not be as wired in to start seeing it in the stores. Because again, if we have a release date of March, we are 3 months out now. And even for standard games that are playing right now, the next set for another, usually most sets have like a 3-4 month cadence of a release cycle. Solicitations and things start coming down for that.
Yeah, that is actually, I mean, that's a really important point to make, because, well, I agree totally. I think what they've done so far is correct. Like, I'm sure they could have like put a bunch of money into, getting Avril Lavigne to say, I love the Star Wars Unlimited card game or whatever. but they could have YouTube ads, they could have all that stuff, and I think to one end, there's a time and place for that kind of stuff, and I'm not certain the Battle Spirits ads in December last year helped with their March release or April release or whatever that much,
right?
As much as they would have in February or something, But I agree completely with you, though, that the big thing they need to do right now is transition to the LGS. And I want to be clear too. I don't know. I don't read their minds. I don't have people calling me from Fantasy Flight saying, here's what we're doing next. So I have no idea. This, for all we know, we could put this out, and that very day there's going to be like a blast of solicits to every LGS in the country.
And it's because we said so.
Yeah. Yeah. We manifested it.
We manifested it, we said so.
Yeah. But one thing that strikes me is just, when I look at games that have succeeded actually at getting this, at getting themselves marketed appropriately. One of the games I think of is Flesh and Blood, which is a game that, that game had everything against it from the very start. Like that game's almost a miracle that it is doing as well as it is, because that game started out as a novel IP, a game based on a very specific idea, which is effectively nobody supports competitive TCGs the way we like it anymore because Magic stopped doing it very well. So we're going to do it. And also it's going to be like they're going to fight each other. A couple people fight each other, punch till the death or something. Right. So that was yeah, with sword. Yeah. Sword to the death and stuff. So that was their idea. And then what they did, and at the time, actually, so I'm fairly close with actually both of our main local LGSs. And I was in one LGS, like in the back, just chatting with my former boss. Shout out to Rich, who's been on some other Star Wars podcasts too. And I was like, "Hey, what's that?" And he's like, "Oh, that's this thing that came in from these guys with a card game called Flesh and Blood." And I was like, I mocked it at the time. Honestly, I'll be straight up. Completely honest. I thought it was like Flesh and Blood. Like, who want? Like, first of all, that sounds gross. Like, I don't want to play that game. And second, like, I can't believe they really think they're just going to be able to get their little TCG off the ground just by like effectively cold calling LGSs. Because what they did was they just mailed out to everyone, every LGS they could find. They're like, here's our game. If you want some stuff, we'll send it to you. Here's our pitch. Like, check it out. And a lot of people ignored it. A lot of people were like me and thought this is dumb. And a lot of people picked it up. A bunch of people also picked it up. Not a lot right away. It was pretty small right away. But a bunch of people picked it up from that. And then COVID hit. And then and then they like had to struggle, but they got an online community going. They built it up there. And then they just started LGS Outreach again once everything came back. And like Flesh and Blood never had YouTube ads that I ever saw. I never had anything like that. Even I don't think they had the budget for it. Like from what I understand, James White, the dude, like had a Yu-Gi-Oh shop in New Zealand or Australia or whichever one. I can't remember now. And basically sold his inventory and was like, I'm making a card game. Sell literally everything I have here. I'm just going to sell out. I'm going to turn this into making a card game. It's going to be the best card game ever. And like, dude succeeded. Like he actually made a card game successful. He's I haven't ever gotten to meet the guy. I haven't play a lot of Flesh and Blood, but it's just really cool. I think he seems like a good guy who had a dream and did a good job. But the point is, his marketing was purely like LGS, word of mouth, etc. And that's just a testament to how effective that rung of the marketing ladder is for TCGs. To the point where if Fantasy Flight never puts out a YouTube ad for Stars Unlimited, I actually don't think that's that important. I think that's not a big deal. I think it'd be nice, but I don't think it's a big deal. And I don't know what the like conversion rate is. I don't know if it's like worth it compared to if they can start actually getting LGSs to get on board, and know about the game and try the game out. And actually, I think you're right. I don't think it should have been done yet. But I think it's about time. Like it's about damn time that they start getting some LGSs to get some cards in their hand and just get interested, at least know anything about the game. So when people come and talk to them, be like, oh yeah, I know that that we can get that through here. It comes out this date. And I think that'll be really, really key for getting things going.
They could tell everybody that there's a Greedo card, and what's their favorite, stuff like that.
There's a Greedo. There's a Greedo.
Guys, you're exactly right. And I think we're in a unique situation with Star Wars Unlimited. You bring up Flesh and Blood, which is an excellent point. It was pushed by the LGS and somehow lightning in a bottle, because that's where the crux of these people are coming from. We're in a unique situation because we're talking about an IP that is so massive, worldwide notoriety. So you got to butter both sides of your bread, like on this situation. I mean, I guess not both sides of your bread, both sides of your sandwich. Because you butter both sides of the bread, you can't pick up the bread because now it has butter on both sides.
If you butter both sides of the sandwich, it's the same thing, Jason.
No.
Have you never made a sandwich before?
No. Yes, I've made a sandwich before. There's the outside of your bread, and then there's the inside of the two slices of bread, and then you have the outer slices, the outside of the bread. Picture, if you will,
okay, so you're saying butter both. I mean, like you do butter both sides if you're going to.
Like, if you're going to make a grilled cheese sandwich. Butter, not here. Yeah, but I'm talking about a regular sandwich. I didn't say a grilled cheese sandwich. But no, you got to butter both sides of your bread. Take that as you will. You got to placate to the audience at large, your YouTube, your Twitters, your Instagram, your influencers, et cetera, et cetera. We could sit here and talk about it all we want, but the people that are going to play the game are going to your local game stores, are going to pick this game up and want to play with people in a store. And they're going to go to places that they know. And it's going to be, obviously, I don't know the entire scheme. It's obviously going to be in some sort of retailer somewhere you could pick it up at, but it's also going to be in your local game store. And that's who's going to have to support it. And that's where the lifeblood of the game is going to be. Organized play is going to start at the level of your local game store. So if you decide you like the game, that's where they're going to be. So they need to get something rolling out to these stores. Like I said, they didn't need to do it before. I do think it was early enough in the life cycle where people can just talk about it. They can go to cons, make it feel a little exclusive, get a buzz going. I think we're past that period of buzz, and now we need to get to that period of, okay, it's game time. We're going to launch this in a couple of months. Holiday season's just about to wrap up. We're going to get into kind of this retail dead zone. So what a perfect time to get this in the local game store. Kind of a holiday hangover, get people excited, ready to come purchase it in March and just dive right in that way.
And that's like, actually, from a retailer perspective, that is a really, really important point to make. That's a perspective that not a lot of like players, or consumers really think about too much. But from the retail perspective, as a retailer, I want you to be pre-ordering this product right after the holidays. I want you to be doing it in January and February. That's because those are some of the lowest sales months of the year. Like pretty much 100% of the time.
Yeah. And
for most stores,
and I know Dan has worked in a local game store. I have too.
We both
up until a few years ago, I worked part-time, even, just one day a week, I couldn't let it go. I still wanted to do it, but
I know that feeling.
And I still, want to. I still want to be in there doing all that. I still do it now. I'm doing it for free because I'm insane, and I want to help. I want to be a part of the community. But I want you to take that gift card you got for Christmas. I want to take that extra money you might have got to pour into your passion. But why not have it here? Why not have it at the local game store? Pre-order your Star Wars Unlimited here rather than, okay, well, still nothing's come out. I don't know how to feel about it. I haven't had a chance to touch it. I've watched these videos. I've watched this. I've seen that. I've listened to this. Now it's at the point where I do think we need to start looking at either getting it to these stores to talk about it and getting it into people's hands.
And let me say too that like I mentioned that like I don't think it's necessarily that important to have things like YouTube or whatever, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram ads or whatever. I think those are fine, but not that important. But where I actually do think I really, 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 really want to see Fantasy Flight getting their paws into things and getting this game shown to people is however they can do it on Disney Plus. I think that is going to be the like, and Lorcana's got a similar situation where that's where they want to be too. But it's especially for the Star Wars fans, because like the one thing about Disney is that like, I mean, yeah, I'm sure most Disney fans have Disney Plus. That seems like a given, but Star Wars fans exclusively right now are getting Star Wars through Disney Plus. That's literally the only way you're consuming your fandom. That's I mean, that's it, because all the shows right now release on Disney Plus and they don't go anywhere else, and they do not release. You can't. Not that anyone buys Blu-rays anymore, but you can't buy a Blu-ray of The Mandalorian season 3 or whatever. You just go stream it on Disney Plus over and over again. It makes so much sense to put you when you literally, like, they've managed to successfully funnel an entire fandom into one streaming service. Like, that's where the ads need to be. That's they
Yeah.
and Disney Plus, they, like, thankfully doesn't run ads, but they do have, like, they have like the merch store thing where they're like, hey, you can shop here and get some merch. I see that, like, and that actually catches my eye sometimes. Like when Ahsoka was coming out, they had like, get Ahsoka's lightsabers, and like, I gotta look at those. Those look cool. I gotta go look at those. Like, and I went to their little shop thing and I looked at them. And like, this should say, you go to the Star Wars movies, and every Star Wars movie should have a little alert thing that says you can relive the Star Wars experience on your tabletop with Star Wars Unlimited and our merch store or whatever. And you go there, and like, if they could make something like that happen, if they can get some deal working with Lucasfilm where they can get that put in to Disney Plus in some way, that is, I think, the single most effective outside of the LGS advertising that I think they can actually muster up right now, because that's your whole fan base right there.
Yeah, and that's funny you mentioned that, because I was actually going to mention that too. And that was kind of like my one wish out of all of this.
Yeah.
Is like, you have an ace in the hole of unimaginable proportions. Like you said, everybody's going to the same service. You know, you have all your eggs in the proverbial basket. Why not? What do you have to lose? Like you said, a lot of people like me, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not trying to click something. But you're right. All it takes is, well, you know what? Curiosity. You know, it's in all of us. So if they could just, if I had like I said, a pie in the sky kind of dream, maybe exactly that. Get it on Disney Plus in some sort of way. And even, who's to say down the line, and I don't want to go too far into this, because really I'm not, I'm not as well versed about this stuff. What if there's like a tier under the tier that you pay for Disney Plus now that does have advertisements? Forget it. And everybody's trying to make a buck nowadays. Who knows? That's not something that doesn't happen when prices go up eventually. Like, okay, well, now we need to make a tier. Let's throw our advertisements for our products here that were our toys and everything else that we're selling in stores.
Yep. Yeah. And like, I know this is a complicated subject. I know I just want to be really clear, because I think a lot of people would take this and go like, well, look, there's this reason why that could never happen. I understand. We're talking about Disney, like, overarching, running everything. We're talking about dealing with like, just where ads go, what the cost is to be able to because like Fantasy Flight is licensing through Lucasfilm and Disney. And I don't, and that whole thing is probably just a murky pretzel of who's in charge of what and who allows what to happen. And who pays for what, and how does, I'm like, there's a lot of questions about how any of that would even work, not only just for Star Wars Unlimited, but also for things like Lorcana and everything, even though Disney's potentially more, actually, I'm not sure if they're more directly involved in that or not. That's a whole other, like, I don't know what's going on with the IP ownership and the licensing in all of that. But that isn't to say that is to say, like, I know it's complicated, but like, I agree. Like, for a wish, that is certainly my wish, because I think that is, if they can make it work somehow, that's the single best way that they can start to get the word out about the game, to specifically to the key demographic of non-TCG players. Because if they can nail the LGS component, TCG players are often either going to be informed already because they hang out on online communities and they've learned about the game through those, or they go to cons or whatever, or they're at least going to go to the LGS and they'll be like, oh, look, it's on the shelf. Like, cool. That's it. I didn't know Star Wars had a card game. I want to check that out. Like, that stuff's kind of cool. LGS is going to basically, and what they're doing already is going to basically cover gamers, right? But Disney Plus is how you, or however else they can manage to this, is how you grow your audience who don't know that they love TCGs yet. Your future TCG lovers are the ones that are there because they've never had a chance to play one. But as we know from FFG's, what everything is said, they designed Star Wars Unlimited to be a game that non-TCG players can get into. It's supposed to be accessible. It's supposed to be play your favorite character, unlimited possibilities. Just learn how to play the game from this easy Luke Invader starter decks, and you can get into the TCG experience even as a first timer through Star Wars Unlimited. But they got to find that audience to make that really pan out.
Yeah, pan out, and pan is the Spanish word for bread. So butter both sides of your bread.
Wow. You got to be kidding me, Jason.
So what a great way to bring it home about our conversation about the marketing that they have been doing and what we would like to see.
Handle that one.
I mean, what else am I here for? What a way to bring it home about what we were talking about today about the marketing that we've seen so far, and maybe a wish for how the marketing could go in the future. So, Dan, I think we really knocked this first one out of the park. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a home one.
A home one.
A real home one.
That's a baseball term for those.
No, it's a ship. The home one.
No, that's a baseball term. I'm playing off of the whole I don't know as much as you do thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah, okay. But you knew what the home one was. You knew what the home one was.
Yeah,
right?
No, I kind of got where you were going with it, but I had to bring it back to that. It's like the whole you wore a different, like I have stripes, you don't have stripes kind of thing. I thought we were going back to like this odd couple kind of thing. So
it's kind of like an opposites attract, odd couple situation.
Yeah, exactly, just like that. So outside of all that, I would really just like to take a minute to thank everybody for listening us or watching us today, or doing a little bit of both as part of the Maindeck podcast family. For Mr. Daniel Green, I'm Jason Toro. We'll be back in 2 weeks for episode number 2 about whatever the heck we decide to talk about. To you and yours, have a safe holiday season, and I think we'll see you on the other side. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.